Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Say What You Like NFL Weekly Podcast. I am Philip Enriquez, and today I am bringing you the Week 9 edition of the podcast. We're going to talk about all the latest news and notes going on in the league for Week 9. We kind of fast-forwarded a little bit last week because we were starting to get into some playoff predictions in the NFC. We do have to get back to the AFC, but I don't think I'm going to have the time to do so this week. So stay tuned. We're going to get to the AFC. All you Raiders, Chiefs fans, Broncos fans, Pats fans, we're going to get to you soon enough. But today, I just want to go over the news and notes for the week. And starting with this heartbreaker, not just breaking news, but heartbreaking news if you're a Texans fan. DeShaun Watson, the Texans rookie quarterback, goes down, tears his ACL during Thursday's practice. That's got to be just gut-wrenching. I'm talking gut-wrenching if you're a Houston Texans fan, because this kid was straight shining. This kid was coming off probably the most impressive performance by a rookie quarterback in NFL history. 402 yards, a 63% completion percentage, 4 TDs. Yeah, he had the 3 INTs to go with it, but he still had a 106.9 passer rating for the game. He went toe-to-toe with a Super Bowl champion. And when I say Super Bowl champion, I'm talking about the quarterback and the defense. That is a Super Bowl champion team in the Seattle Seahawks there. And he went toe-to-toe, didn't pull no punches. I mean, he looked like a vet out there. Just an impressive game, even in a loss. DeShaun Watson's stock was on fire. It was going up. And it's just a shame to see this ACL tear is just going to end his season. And speaking of ending the season, let's take a look at his stats. And I will remind you, he did not even start the first game of the season. He ends the year with 1,699 yards, just 1 yard shy of 1,700 there. 62% completion percentage, 19 touchdowns to 8 interceptions, and 103 passer rating. This kid's a rookie. So there's a lot of promise. You have to be, as down as you're feeling today as a Houston Texans fan, you have to be feeling optimistic for next year, because let's just hope that defense can stay healthy, because let's face it, they've had a lot of key contributors go down and end up on the IR list. You know, you have this is actually the third impact player. I'm just thinking about it, because they placed J.J. Watt on IR, a leg injury, I believe. And then Whitney Merciless went down. I think he had a torn pectoral muscle. And now DeShaun Watson with this, ACL tear. So heartbreaking. But you have to think that it's going to be a better season when all these guys are healthy next season in 2018 if you're a Texans fan. Lucky for Houston that the Astros pulled off that Game 7 win over the Los Angeles Dodgers in my backyard over at Chavez Ravine to give Houston something to feel proud about as far as sports teams go, because guess what, Houston, you're going to be looking at Tom Savage every Sunday, playing quarterback for your team, and that's not what you're used to, because you're used to Deshaun Watson starting to light up the league, but that's on hold for a year here. Anyhow, speaking about quarterbacks that are being placed on IR yesterday, Colts place Andrew Luck on season-ending IR yesterday as well. You guys probably are already familiar with a lot of the story that goes into Andrew Luck's season. He was suffering from a shoulder injury last season, tried to grit and play through it, but it ended up really, really hurting his performance, and as you can see, hurting his health now today. He had surgery, though, in the offseason, I believe in January, and this is, again, on his throwing shoulder. He missed all of the off-season program, and then he started to return to some light throwing drills in October, and the guy was just experiencing pain and discomfort in that throwing arm. And that's not good news if you're a Colts or Andrew Luck fan, because with modern-day medicine, you really don't hear about a player having such a quick setback after a surgery. So you got to wonder if, I'm not going to say this is career-threatening, but if this isn't more serious, then they're letting us know, because he was hurt last season, played through it, could have made, I'm not a doctor, but I'm just thinking common sense here. He probably could have made it worse. Didn't get surgery until later on in the off season, and he did not participate in any of the drills, so they gave him time to heal up. But still, all the way into October, we're talking 10 months after surgery, he couldn't even throw light, go through a light practice. He couldn't go through light throwing motions with the football. So how in the heck do you expect this guy to start gunning it on an NFL level? So the Colts and Andrew Luck's career, they ride on that throwing shoulder that he's got. And it's just not good news, man. So the Colts, say goodbye to them for the season. They're not about nothing. They're not going to go nowhere. I like the kid, Jacoby Brissett. I think he's gritty, but he's no Andrew Luck. And that roster is just a dumpster fire. A dumpster fire. I mean, you got T.Y. Hilton and a bunch of dudes I couldn't even name. So it doesn't look good for the Indianapolis Colts, and they also place Andrew Luck on IR. So, DeShaun Watson and him, two young franchise quarterbacks going down on IR this Thursday. I do want to talk a little bit more about these quarterbacks. I plan on talking about them next week. And on next week's show, I may have just a little bit of a surprise for you. So be sure to tune in wherever you are listening, YouTube, Anchor, SoundCloud, wherever it is that you're listening. Tune in next week. We should have some good stuff. I want to talk more about these young quarterbacks in the NFL. Jameis. I will talk about Jameis this week. I talked about the kid last week. I said he turned the ball over way too much, and he proves me right. 55.3 completion percentage, 210 yards, I believe, no touchdowns, 2 INTs, and a 49.2 passer rating. I'm going to circle, highlight, underline the 2 INTs. Look, I hear he's got a bum shoulder. There were rumors that they should or want to shut him down for the season. And if he's hurt, go the Andrew Luck route. The Bucs ain't going nowhere this year. Get your QB healthy, because at this point, I can only judge what I see on the field, and what I see doesn't look anywhere near a quarterback I would draft as the number 1 overall pick. He looks like maybe a top 20 quarterback in this league. I love his enthusiasm. I love his leadership. I love a lot about Jameis Winston as a leader, but he turns the ball over way too much as a quarterback. You cannot win in this league if you are giving short fields to the other team and you're turning the ball over, because that's as good as putting points on the board, more times than not. So Jameis, get healthy or get better. Either one, whether it's, we're relating to health or your play on the field in general, you got to get better. You're the number 1 overall pick, and you're not looking like it, buddy. So hopefully Jameis will start to get it together, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for that matter. But what I want to end with here on the show, the big Kansas City and Dallas Cowboys matchup. I mean, we're talking about this Midwest matchup here. Big Midwest matchup. Kansas City travels to Jerry World, taking on the Cowboys. This game was hovering anywhere from 3. I believe the Cowboys were favored by 3, and then it went to a pick'em. And now the Cowboys are back favored by 3, because the big late-breaking news today is Ezekiel Elliott will be playing in this game. He's set to go to court. They're guessing, again, guesstimating that he'll get some type of a hearing or decision this week, but that leaves him completely eligible for this Kansas City Chiefs game on Sunday. And thank goodness, because now things are really turning in the favor of my Dallas Cowboys. Let's take a look at this matchup a little bit closer. Okay, Kansas City, they're coming off a short week, traveling to Dallas. So the travel time and one less day of preparation should bode well for these Cowboys. Now, Ezekiel Elliott being back means a big plus for the Cowboys, because that Kansas City rush defense isn't any good. As a matter of fact, that Kansas City defense is kind of a bit disappointing, so far into the season. It's been that offense that has carried the team thus far. And when the season started, I thought it was completely different. I would have had the roles reversed. If you would have asked me who had the advantage on offense in the beginning of the season, I would have said the Dallas Cowboys for sure. and I would have said the KC had a huge advantage on defense. But I think the tables have really turned here as far as looking at these two teams here in midseason. And the reason for that is this Cowboys defensive line is beasting. I did not give them their props last week when I had Jacob over from the Football Fanatic here on the weekly podcast. I kind of mentioned that I believe the Eagles had a better defense than the Cowboys, and that is a great discussion to have here on the podcast in a future week. Maybe Jacob can come back on and we can go back and forth on that because I think it's close. I think that's an interesting discussion. And by the way, on YouTube, user Kylie Sean, shout out to Kylie Sean. He mentioned, or she mentioned, whoever you are out there, Eagles, they actually, when you do average points per game, the Eagles had a better defense, 19.5 points-wise, to the Cowboys giving up 23 points per game because the Cowboys did have a bye week. So, Jacob, man, was that points per game or was that just points allowed on the season? Because remember, the Cowboys played one less game than the Eagles. However, let's get back to the meat here, the meat and potatoes. Let's talk about some of these players on defense that the Cowboys are going to bring into this matchup with the Kansas City Chiefs. You got the sack king on the Iron Throne. You got Tank DeMarcus Lawrence leading the league with 10.5 sacks. He had 3 sacks in that Arizona game, and he's had at least 1 sack in every other game. So not only is he getting a great pass rush here for the Dallas Cowboys this season, but he's getting a consistent pass rush. And you have to like that if you're a Dallas Cowboys fan. Because if you've been a fan like me for a long time, this team has not had a consistent pass rush. That has year after year after year been our Achilles heel. And this year, it looks like those fortunes have changed because the Cowboys have pass rushers galore on this defensive line. So yeah, everybody in the league knows about DeMarcus Lawrence. But let's take a look at some of these other guys that are just creating havoc along that defensive line for the Cowboys. You got David Irving, who, again, he served a 4-week suspension in the beginning of the year. So he's only played 3 games. And in those 3 games, they switched him from defensive end to the 3-technique under tackle defensive tackle there. And he's got 5 sacks in just 3 games. So he's had 2 sack games in just the 3 games that he's played. In the 3rd game, he got 1 sack. So again, consistency, getting at least 1 sack a game. David Irving is a beast. You should see some of the pressures this guy gets. He's found a home at that 3 technique that Malik Collins was previously playing. So they switched Malik Collins over to the 1-tech defensive tackle. So he's lining up on the center. So, again, that's not a position where you're going to put up as big a stats as the 3 technique where you're lining up against the guards more often. However, he's still making some noise. 2.5 sacks on the season is not bad for your 1 technique. So even Malik Collins is getting in on there. And I hear he's got a kind of a bit of a foot problem that he's dealing with and he's trying to play through it. But 2.5 is nothing to sneeze at when you're playing that 1 tech. And then finally, the biggest bust for as far as a free agent signing for the Dallas Cowboys, Tyrone Crawford. He got some big money. They've been moving him all around the defensive line, playing musical chairs with this guy, but I think he's found a home at the opposite end spot of DeMarcus Lawrence. Tyrone Crawford got moved to defensive end, and now he's had a sack in each of his last 3 games. He's getting consistent pressure. He's knifing into the backfield, taking down the running backs, hitting the running backs at the point of attack. So this defensive line is beasting, man. I really underestimated the Dallas Cowboys defense going into the season, and even as late as last week where I didn't give them a lot of props, calling their defense inferior to the Eagles, where I'm not so sure about that argument anymore, and that's why we got to take a closer look at that argument very, very soon here on the podcast. But all in all, this Cowboys line is beasting. I've talked about all the starters along that line. This Kansas City defense is no slouch. They got some pass rushers. Now, I heard D Ford is a DNP, so he didn't participate in practice a couple of days out of the week, so who knows if he's going to play. But look, you still have Justin Houston out there. This guy's a monster. He had a big game last week, so look for them to try to get Houston involved, disrupting this offense, as much as they can. That's their big hope there. Now, on the backside of that defense, they got a lot of playmakers, Marcus Peters in particular, and then they have Terrence Mitchell, I believe, at the other cornerback. Terrence Mitchell used to be with the Cowboys. I think he was a cut a couple of years back. Gritty kid, though. Plays tough. Maybe doesn't have all the talent in the world, but, he plays tough. He has some mental lapses, at least how I remember him, but he plays you tough. So hopefully, I don't believe those cornerbacks travel with receivers, so maybe you can match up Dez on Mitchell, because he used to abuse him all the time in training camp. So that could be a matchup I like. If you have Dez Bryant in fantasy, this is the week to probably play him, because I think they're going to get some favorable matchups here. Peters, he likes to peek. He likes to peek at that QB and try to get the pick. So he's a feast or famine guy. He can straight kill you in a game, getting turnovers. I've seen him create fumbles, force fumbles. He's trying to rip that ball out from the receiver, standing there, kind of not wanting to be the one to make the initial tackle, but to be that secondary tackler and rip the ball out, force a turnover. That's Marcus Peters. Marcus Peters also wants to jump in front of that ball. And if you can catch him slipping, you might have a big play. So especially with the, Eric Berry's no longer there to clean it up in the back end. So, again, something that I think the Cowboys might be able to exploit. I really like this matchup for Dallas, especially with Zeke in this game here. The threat of the run, Dallas can't lose that, though. So we cannot afford to let Kansas City get an early lead on the Cowboys, because that totally forces you to throw those 50-50 balls to Dez and Terrence Williams and Bryce Butler, probably a little bit more than Terrence Williams. And, it's not a high percentage play. They have the ability to make those plays, but that's not your game. Your game is running the ball down the opposing defense throats with Ezekiel Elliott, taking away their will to win the game. So you cannot fall behind, Dallas Cowboys, because Kansas City has an offense that will light you up. Travis Kelce, he does it all. Without a doubt, this guy is the best tight end in the league today. Don't give me no Gronk. Don't give me no nobody. It's Travis Kelce, without a doubt. He does so much. He's basically a humongous wide receiver. Big, strong guy that can run downfield. He can, I see him run drags. I see him run slants. I see him run digs. I see him run anything. Streaks. This guy can do it all. He even, gets shovel passes for touchdowns, I've seen. So this guy can do it all. He's a threat at all times on this field. You got to keep Travis Kelce in check. And Alex Smith, this guy's a legitimate MVP candidate. Can you believe? No interceptions on the year yet for Alex Smith. So we're already halfway into the season and no picks for Alex Smith. That's how careful he is with the ball. And the difference is, this year, now he's making big plays because he's got Tyreek Hill, just the fastest man in the NFL today, in my opinion. Shove the time clocks up your ass. Tyreek Hill is the fastest guy I see when I give the eye test and watch those games week in and week out. Tyreek Hill is a playmaker, and he's got the hands. He's not just some track star. He's a football player. So Tyreek Hill is the weapon. You got the rookie Kareem Hunt. This guy was beasting, putting up a similar season to what Ezekiel Elliott had as a rookie last year. So he's a threat, and we cannot let Kareem Hunt run over this defense. Sean Lee's back, Hitchens is back. Jalen Smith played a lot better in limited snaps. He made some plays, let's face it, last game. So again, I really like the way this matchup is trending for Dallas, but do not get me wrong. These Chiefs are legitimate. Arguably, they're the most complete team in the league. My apologies to Philadelphia Eagles fans, but I feel like the Chiefs have had a tougher schedule and just really impressed me more with their weapons all around on both offense and defense and special teams. They are complete in all three phases of the game. So, this is going to be a great matchup to watch for, guys. I got to start, ending this here. So I'll just end with how the Cowboys are going to stop this offense. I think Byron Jones covering the tight end is a key. Being able to cover Travis Kelce. Byron Jones is a beast, physically. One of the fastest guys, strongest guys at his position. He's just still learning the position. Dez Bryant, he still hasn't had a 100-yard game. He's going to need to step up. Maybe not so much now that Zeke's back, but you're going to need to make some key catches, some key throws, especially if they can get Mitchell. They can get him lined up with Mitchell. I think he can abuse him. I wouldn't really test Peters so much because Peters can make some plays, and Dez is known to have a mental lapse here and there, and I think Peters can make the Cowboys offense pay, maybe even taking something to the house. So I tried to avoid that matchup. Dak's got to prove his doubters wrong. He's just got to play his game, especially now that Zeke's back. Like I said, guys, it's going to be a close, probably a very, very good game. But in the end, I'm going to take the Cowboys here. I'm going to take the Cowboys to win 28-21. I just think with Zeke coming back, this is going to give these Cowboys some momentum, a boost in their morale. I think they're going to go in there, establish the run, just run on these Chiefs, wear them down, and win a close game in the end. But again, Kansas City's going to get their points. I can see some big plays being had on this Cowboys defense. I think Tyreek Hill or Kareem Hunt, one of them guys is going to get loose and just have a 60-yard plus touchdown. I just see it happening. So the Cowboys have to establish that run. Cannot allow that big play to happen before they establish the run, because once the Cowboys are off their game plan, you can see these coaches are not always the best with these adjustments, but when their game plan works, man, they look like a dominant offense. And, let's just hope the defense can keep these Chiefs in check, guys. But, you know what? That's all I got for you here on Week 9. I'm going to keep it real short because I got some big things planned for Week 10. So keep it locked in here to the Say What You Like Sports podcast. I am Philip Enriquez, and I'll get with you guys. Hopefully you guys get back with us, I should say, next week here on Week 10. Say what you like, baby.